Jacob, what I thought was interesting when I was reading some of your reports was that those over 55 doubled their charitable giving. And my understanding is that there's still some stickiness. So they typically donate to the same charity because they're used to it. But it's actually very different for younger generations. Can you share some insights into that?
Yeah. And so I'll just firstly clarify that. So what we see, the phenomenon with the 55 plus generation of donors is that they are actually giving at twice the rate of those aged 25 to 54.
Wow.
So there's a huge gap, which we've dubbed the giving gap, when it comes to donations from that younger generation. So the older generation is taking on more and more the bulk of the giving and the support of charitable organizations in Canada. One thing that we did see this year in our recent poll was that during the pandemic, when we look at the different generations, we see that younger folks actually increase their giving the most during the pandemic. So people aged 18 to 34 actually increased their giving by 17%, versus that 55 years and older age group only increasing their giving by 12% in comparison. Other thing that we've noticed about this younger generation of donors, you mentioned that the older generation might have a lifelong affinity to one or certain organizations, where the younger generation has an affinity to certain causes. So they want to donate in support of the environment or social justice movements.
Okay. One concern that I want to address, I guess, because I hear this often, is a lot of people who donate want to make sure that their money is going where it's intended, and it's not eaten up by fat overhead. Mm-hmm. What's your response to that?
I think that's a very valid concern. I think whenever we're making any type of investment with our money, we want to make sure that it's of use, it's of value. What I would say to that is that when you're donating to charities in Canada, every single charity is registered with and vetted by the Canada Revenue Agency. Mm-hmm. As part of that registration, every single charity needs to have quite a high level of accountability. So for every registered charity in Canada, they must make their tax filings public to Canadians every single year. So you actually get to see where every single one of your dollars go. But I'd also like to make a second point here is that this is often the single way that we evaluate the effectiveness of charities. And I think this could actually hamper the effectiveness of charities because this type of paradigm doesn't allow them to invest in themselves, and could mean in less wages for their employees, right, which leads to burnout and difficulties there. So at Canada Helps Here, we like to focus on the impact that the organization is making rather than simply their overhead.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point, Jacob, because it takes people and investment to run a charity, and sometimes we do forget that. So they can find this information on the CRA website or your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all of this is available on the CRA's website. On CanadaHelps.org, you can also search for and find any charity in Canada, and that financial information from the Canada Revenue Agency is pulled into our website. That's there. Additionally, on every single charity's page, there is an impact page where the charity, yes, you're able to see that financial information, but they're able also to tell that impact story. So it's all there in one place.
Okay. I want to get your thoughts on GoFundMe, because they're very popular, and I can see why. In one sense, they see exactly who they're impacting. There's a story often behind there, but there isn't often scrutiny. It's not a registered charity. What do people have to be aware of?
Yeah, I'd firstly like to say that so when these crowdfunding platforms allow for individuals or groups to create to write a story and create a fundraising page for something that's important to them. We've seen tremendous acts of kindness and amazing things made possible through these crowdfunding pages, like the funding of really important healthcare to people that wouldn't have had the funds otherwise. I think you touched a really important point. A couple of things to note is that these pages are tied to individual bank accounts, and there aren't those same accountability mechanisms in place that we talk about with registered charities.
Right.
So again, when you give to registered charity, firstly, if you're going to CanadaHelps.org, every single charity's page is linked directly with their bank account, number one, so you know where that money is going. And number two, these are vetted by the Canada Revenue Agency. They have there's laws in place about how they can spend their money.
Okay. Jacob, thanks very much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
We
so
have
much
your
for having
website
me.
up so people know where to find you. That was Jacob O'Connor of Canada Helps.